Welcome to the Great Old Ones channel. Here I'll talk about tabletop role-playing games. Today's topic, I'll be showing you some game aids that I've had for quite some time and how this shaped the early tabletop role-playing game industry. In the infancy of Dungeons and Dragons, this early role-playing game that was becoming a phenomenon, not a whole lot of commercial material was available for purchase for use in players and Dungeon Master's campaign. One of the earlier players in that game is Judges Guild, formed in 1976 by a couple of gentlemen who decided that they would like to produce some of their own ideas for the Dungeons and Dragons game. So they sought out permission from TSR Hobbies to be the official game aids of the Dungeons and Dragons hobby. When they released Advanced Dungeons and Dragons after that, they also became the official Advanced Dungeons and Dragons game aids. What I have right here at this point is the campaign hexagon system, and you can see some of the maps and stuff that they had produced, and some books just of blank mapping paper for the use of the Dungeon Masters and the players. They produced a whole game world, several different booklets. Mine are a little beat up here, of game world materials, players maps, Dungeon Masters maps, and descriptions of this particular maps that they put out, the original kind of campaign source books, if you'd like. In addition to that, missing my cover here, they produced ready reference sheets, just booklets full of tables and information, a lot of which didn't make a whole lot of sense, but was filled with ideas. If you didn't want to use any of the tables and stuff themselves, at least to give you some ideas as to some things that you can do. You can see my own, well, actually my brother's embellishment with the artwork that he produced. In addition to that, they also produced like original dungeon modules. Is one of the more popular ones that came out with something called Tagle Manor. I guess you could call it a Halloween themed dungeon, but the source book for all of stuff that related to that. Not to be outdone, TSR produced their own materials. You can see this in the Dungeon Geomorphs book, which were just pages of maps the Dungeon Masters could use for their dungeons. Instead of drawing a whole lot of maps on their own caves and dungeons and stuff, that they could actually just use these maps out of these books for their own dungeons. Another game aid I have here, like I said, I can say this is fairly precious to me. I actually know the guy that produced these things. Talked to him recently. He's no longer doing anything related to Dungeons and Dragons, but Mammoth Dungeons were printed on demand by this gentleman here, and he produced maps with lots and lots of levels and stuff to them, different scales, overview maps, all this stuff together for Dungeon Masters to use, because at the time, huge mammoth dungeons, huge dungeons of mega dungeons were the popular thing to go with. So of course, getting in on this, there was some other people that were involved. Chaosium Incorporated also produced game aids and materials for use in the Dungeons and Dragons. And this particular one is relatively generic. It could be used with any other game system in addition to that. Not to be outdone, we had the Flying Buffalo Incorporated produced these books called Grimtooth's Traps. I happen to have a copy of every one that has been released. This is just the original Grimtooth's Traps from 1981. These are some very over-the-top traps and trap ideas in some of these books here. They're just completely outrageous and fantastical. I would almost never use any of these in an actual dungeon itself, but it was a fantastic, entertaining read, and just a lot of fun to go with. Dragon Magazine was another game aid that was released in there with dungeons that were involved, information on various different things that you can get into, stories, columns in here about asking questions, sage advice, things like this, in addition to advertisements and articles about other game systems in addition to Dungeons and Dragons. There's also a magazine that was produced called Dungeon Magazine. These were adventures for TSR role-playing games, and all that was in these was just, as you could guess, dungeons. Picked up a few copies of these over the years and stuff as well. Now, one of the last things I want to produce is something that everybody loved. We have the player character record sheets, and these were the what they called the Canary Edition, and everything you needed to do for your character was on these pages, so that you could play your character on one piece instead of having to write everything down and scribble on pieces of paper with smudges and stuff that you couldn't read eventually later on. They also produced half-page styles, which are a whole lot smaller, which, as a 14, 15-year-old kid, this was okay. As old as I am now, I can't read it anymore because it is all too tiny. So I have to get some reading glasses and stuff and blow these things up into full-size pages in order to use that kind of stuff anymore. Well, there you have it. There's a quick look at some game aids and stuff that I've collected over the years and managed to rescue out of the basement, the attic, the trash bin, as years going along, and supplementing my collections and stuff with it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have suggestions for further comments, further videos, just leave a comment below. Thank you.